All right, welcome back. So this is Katie Halper interviewing, I think his name is Yasha Levine, but I'm not positive. And they're going to talk about the forest fires, and he's going to talk about what I was talking about, how you're not supposed to even live there.
Okay, calm down.
The Katie
James
Halper Show.
Woods, who is very anti-ceasefire and has said some very disgusting things about Palestinians. He did tweet out, "No ceasefire, no compromise, no forgiveness. # kill them all."
Yeah.
And he does not believe in climate change. Now he's like crying on TV about his house, and they just like
Talking about
built a
James
pool
Woods.
there or something. I don't know. Some major
Really fucked up.
developments have been lost now. So let's take a look at what James Woods had to say. The fire is not from climate change, you ignorant a-hole. It's because liberal idiots like you elect liberal idiots like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. One doesn't understand the first thing about fire management, and the other can't fill the water reservoirs. And then you pointed out the real cause of this, though, Yasha, and you said, "No, James, it is because they let gays fight fires." Classic Hollywood lib take from you. So what is your response besides that to, just elaborate on that.
I mean, it's just a joke.
Like these
Yeah, I know
DUI
that,
fires.
I know that everything is just gets sucked into a stupid culture war in America, right?
Yeah.
So the culture war is that everything is because you have these, minorities and, the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs or something that's ruining America. And it's just a joke because one of the main reasons of these fires in Los Angeles, and someone, a historian like Mike Davis has written quite a lot about this, is that Southern California, in these canyons and hills, naturally there are fires that are supposed to happen there just without any human intervention. These places will burn. They'll accumulate kind of dry bush. And if there's
Right, with no humans there at all, it would burn anyway. Like if humans never even stepped foot on Earth, there would still be California forest fires. Only it wouldn't be called California, but there'd still be fires in the same place.
a spark from lightning or something, and the wind conditions are just right, they'll burn. And these things will, and if the Santa Ana winds are blowing, which are these dry winds from the south that happen in the winter, it'll just like light these places on fire. And so the main problem, is that to build in these areas, you shouldn't be building. It's like building at the bottom of a riverbed, that's like that has seasonal flooding, right? It's like kind of like the Nile or something, like floods happen. And if you build in a flood zone, you're going to get flooded, and you can try to like mitigate it in various ways, which in Southern California, they have been doing that. They've essentially suppress fires all the time. And if anything starts, they put it out immediately. You have these firefighters. But if you build in these areas.
So yeah, again, and he might get to this point, but when you build in these areas, when they, like you said, they put out the fires. When a small fire starts, they put it out. That means there's going to be more kindling, because over time it would have burnt, and they'd have these forest fires that would burn and burn. But we went like a long time. It was on the NPR story. I can't find it now. But we went like 10 or 20, maybe 30 years without having real big forest fires in that area for a while. And then they said there was just like feet of kindling. And that's why we started having these real bad forest fires too, and why they were real hard to put out for a while.
Where fires naturally rip through the canyons, rip through the hills, right? You're not always going to be able to put out the fire in time, right? And so there are, ways to manage it. They started doing like controlled burns, burning in a controlled manner certain chunks of these hills so that to prevent huge, infernos from erupting. But that's still managing it, right? The fact is that you should not build in certain areas. And these hills, they're beautiful. They're ocean views. They're up, this is some of the best, most expensive real estate in Los Angeles. And people shouldn't build there, right? Mm-hmm. So you're kind of going against nature, and you're trying to manage nature, and you can only manage it so long until,
And so if you don't want to manage nature in this way. If we were going to live there, we want to terraform the ground. We want to change nature. We should take out all the trees we don't want. We should plant certain types of trees. We should build ponds and little rivers and stuff so that there's water there. There's a lot of things that we could and should do if you want to build there, but you need to do it in a communal way where you build the whole community kind of at once with certain bodies of water in certain places, so that you can just open a valve and let it run down, or run into your house and have like a sprinkler system or something like that, and it just falls on your house and keeps it wet or whatever. But to just try to manage it and not change it, not going to work. Nature's going to win that battle. You have to actually go in and change it totally.
It kind of gets out of control, and this happens all the time in Los Angeles. Malibu burns every now and again because of in Malibu in particular, the structure of the canyons and the hills there is such that it creates almost these furnaces, like currents are concentrated and sped up, right? And so these fires will just like rip. I mean, they'll move faster than a car can. A car can't even outrun them because that's how fast they move. And so it's like it's a known issue in Los Angeles and in the area that this happens. And so to blame it on, Gavin Newsom, and essentially what this is actually completely.
And Gavin Newsom's not even DEI.
I know they're trying to blame it on the left and they conflate liberals and
right.
left wingers, but it's a completely free market capitalist way of approaching development, right? You essentially allow real estate developers to do whatever they want to make money, and Los Angeles is run, not unlike New York, by real estate interests, right? They control. They're in total control there, and California in general is controlled by real estate interests, like actually most of America. It's a very powerful lobby, but LA in particular, because there's so much land surrounding Los Angeles, there's so much wealth to be made if you allow unchecked development and unchecked real estate speculation. That's always been the economic engine of Los Angeles, real estate speculation, ever since the railroad.
As he started with, he said they blame it. Everybody wants to blame it on the left. They're talking about DEI, Gavin Newsom's on the left, this and that. One, the liberals are not on the left, but also he said this is a capitalist way of designing the city, right? So you let the city be designed by money. The people with the money just buy stuff and then they build it, and then either it sells or it doesn't, and then the invisible hand works its way out, works itself out, and whatnot. A left-wing way would be to think about the people first and design the town for the people and around the people and around the area. Like I said, a left, you would survey the area. You would take out all the trees you don't want, plant the certain trees you do certain landscaping, and then put the houses there, then put the people there, or put the people as you put the houses, whatever. And you could do it little by little, like you start at the top of the mountain, work your way down, because you want to start with the pond at the very top so that you can water everything below it if we're going to build in a fire area. But see, we do it in a capitalist or right-wing way. Right-wing wants capitalism, wants to the invisible hand to organize society, right? You let the rich people, the John Golds, the Elon Musk, they design society, and we just do it, right? We just follow what's her name, Haggerty.
Roads first connected to Los Angeles and connected them to, the continental America. Like real estate speculation, scams is the business in that city, and so they have a historic tied to the city government. And so it's the opposite of what James Wood is talking about.
Right.
I mean, it's the problem is unchecked capitalism, and unchecked greed and unchecked development and unchecked expansion, right?
It's pretty bipartisan, right? This issue.
Yeah, it's a bipartisan thing that
Most
everyone supports.
Bipartisan when it comes to Democrats and Republicans. They're the same party.
If you're Gavin Newsom or if you're Donald Trump, essentially, because Gavin Newsom he represents the landed interests of California. That's who essentially bankrolled his career. And that's why, that's why all these people can get along, they're in the same club essentially. So I think it's trying to make it look like, oh yeah, this black, mayor of Los Angeles, that's the problem because she's too stupid to refill the reservoirs. It's like, well, no, there's, I think once a fire like that breaks out, I don't think there's anything you can do just because if people have seen the videos from, the Palisades fire, the winds were insane. I mean, they were toppling palm trees, these palm trees that they have, they were like bending in half almost. So the winds were hurricane level almost. And so the way that fire can spread, I mean, it just gets spread around a huge wide area, and there's nothing you can do at that point. And so,
so the one thing you could do is have sprinklers on every house. You should have like sprinklers running down the top of every house so that it just turns on, right? It's just sitting there sprinkling. Every house has its own little personal rain. And like I said, ponds in certain places. But see, you got to really forward think, and you kind of you got to think of agriculture in a different way. You can't just say, oh, we're going to knock down a few trees here, do some burning here, we're going to sweep the forest. I mean, that won't work. It just won't. You can sweep the forest. They could have had all the stuff out of there. It's still dry. It's still wood. It'll catch. It'll burn. But what is that? Ooh, verified. All right, but yeah, there are things you can do about it, but there's not things you can do once the fire is already started like that. You got to really, what do you call that? Centrally plan to get it right. If you just do it capitalist wise, one person's gonna do one thing, one person's gonna do another thing. There might be a couple of people doing one thing, and everybody's individual. And then some people make it. Like there are a few houses that did have sprinklers, and some of them made it. And then a lot of houses they didn't have plans. So capitalism, the invisible hand, wipes them out, and so now people can buy or sell their land that's empty and start over and see if we build differently now. Because in capitalism, you just let the money decide, right? And then if something happens, like say a forest fire, or just the plumber didn't do the job correctly, like you got to go get a new plumber. You built in a fireplace, didn't centrally plan for anything, fire wiped it out. Now you got to resell that land or rebuild on it. Are we going to centrally plan this time to mitigate the dangers of forest fires, or are we going to individualize each thing and do it the capitalist way and see what happens, and just see if other people start putting sprinklers on some houses and not others? We'll see.
It is really about decisions, political decisions that have been made, for us,
Right.
for the people who live there. That's not part of the conversation at all, because I don't think the Democrats who are in power in LA, and they are incompetent. I'm not going to, root for them. I'm not going to say they're great, because I do think that the Democrats generally Democrats in California are some of the worst Democrats possible, as we've seen with Kamala Harris. Like the deep neoliberalism that they exist in, and the deep, almost provincial incompetence, because California still is a kind of a provincial state, because I don't know, there's just not a lot of attention that people are really unplugged from the political process in a lot of these towns, and including Los Angeles. So there's not a lot of focus on these elected officials to really, be competent even in the way that they communicate with the public is incompetent. So I'm not saying that they're great or they've done a great job, but it's just, the problem is unchecked capitalism. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's crude, but that's what it is.
But the good news is, while these fires are raging, we do have some good news, which is that our government is prioritizing the right thing. Yesterday, the House voted 243 to 140 to sanction anyone associated with the International Criminal Court's efforts to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute any protected person of the U.S. and its allies, namely Israel.
That's interesting. Does that mean, let's say if you interview someone, let's say...
Well, I don't know how much that has to do with the forest fires, but... So, yes, forest fires, we should not be living there. You shouldn't, right? You shouldn't live if there's an earthquake in a place every year, don't live there. There's forest fires every year there, so we shouldn't live in that area. We should survey... We got a big United States, right? I'm sure there's land areas that are safe to live in, that don't have fires, that don't have earthquakes, that don't have tornadoes, don't have anything. It's crazy to live there. But that's what I got for this Katie Halper. Damn, what was his name? Yasha, I think. Let's see. Katie Halper and Yasha Levine. And just, we shouldn't be living in there. All right, everybody, keep getting your news from across the spectrum.